1. Which type of molecule contains genetic information that is passed from parents to offspring? A. Fat molecules. B. DNA molecules. C. Protein molecules. D. Carbohydrate molecules. 2. In sexually reproducing organisms, such as humans, which of the following statements is true about the chromosomes found in the cells of the children? A. All of the chromosomes in the cells of the children contain genetic information from just one of the parents. B. Half of the chromosomes in the cells of the children contain genetic information from one parent, and half of the chromosomes contain genetic information from the other parent. C. Some of the chromosomes in the cells of the children contain genetic information from each parent, but the number of chromosomes containing information from each parent cannot be predicted. D. Most of the chromosomes in the cells of the sons contain genetic information from the father, and most of the chromosomes in the cells of the daughters contain genetic information from the mother. 3. Paramecia usually reproduce asexually. Sexually. Suppose the environmental conditions in the lagoon change. What advantage will the fish population have over the Paramecium population? A. Sexual reproduction produces offspring that are identical to the parents. B. Sexual reproduction decreases the genetic variability in the fish populations. C. Sexual reproduction limits the spread of harmful characteristics in fish populations. D. Sexual reproduction allows populations to adapt to new conditions over fewer generations. 4. The process that allows sex cells to divide their chromosomes in half is fermentation. B. Binary fission. C. Mitosis. D. Meiosis. 5. Guppies are small fish that live in fresh water. Most guppy species reproduce sexually, but some reproduce asexually. Asexually. There are 2 lakes in a particular region. One lake contains a species of guppy that reproduces asexually. The other lake contains a species of guppy that reproduces sexually. A scientist studying these lakes predicts that the sexually reproducing guppies would survive better than the asexually reproducing guppies if a fungus was introduced to both lakes. Which of these hypotheses explains why the sexually reproducing guppies are more likely to survive? A. The sexually reproducing guppies are identical to one another. B. The sexually reproducing guppies have a variation of inherited characteristics. C. The sexually reproducing guppies require only one individual for reproduction. D. The sexually reproducing guppies are carriers of harmful characteristics. 6. Mitosis is a type of cell division that produces cells that are identical to the parent cell. Meiosis is a different type of cell division that produces cells that carry half the genetic material of the parent cell. Based on the information above, how do the purposes of mitosis and meiosis differ? Based on the information above, How do the purposes of mitosis and meiosis differ? Mitosis is only used by multicellular organisms, while meiosis is only used by single-celled organisms. Mitosis happens once while meiosis happens continually. Mitosis creates cells used for reproduction, while meiosis produces cells used for growth and repair. Mitosis produces cells used for growth and repair, while meiosis produces cells used for reproduction. During a severe drought, a dry lake was explored for fossils. The diagram represents the fossils uncovered and the layers they were in. According to this information, this area was once a forest that was replaced by a freshwater lake. B. Saltwater sea that was replaced by a forest. C. Freshwater lake that was replaced by a desert. D. Freshwater lake that was replaced by a forest. 8. In a certain area of undisturbed layers of rock, fossils of horseshoe crabs may be found in the upper layer. A lower layer contains fossils of trilobites, which are extinct aquatic arthropods that resemble modern horseshoe crabs in structure and appearance. This information suggests that a horseshoe crabs will soon become extinct just as trilobites did. B. Horseshoe crabs and trilobites are unrelated organisms. C. Horseshoe crabs may have adapted and evolved from trilobites. D. Trilobites may have adapted and evolved from horseshoe crabs. Fossils of coelacanth coelacanth fish occur in the fossil record from 410 to 65 million years ago. The lack of more recent fossils led scientists to conclude that the fish went extinct along with the dinosaurs. In 1938, a fisherman caught a living coelacanth. More than 200 of them have been caught on the deep reefs in the Indian Ocean. This fish has been called a living fossil because its body plan is nearly identical to the 400-million-year-old fossils. This structural similarity, as evidenced by the fossil record, supports which statement? A. The environment of the deep sea has changed little over millions of years. B. The amount of salt in the deep sea has changed little over millions of years. C. The oceans have completely dried up multiple times during the past 400 million years. D. The oceans have been continuously repopulated by freshwater fish species over millions of years. 10. Hunter found some termites in a wooden board sitting in his backyard, so he sprayed some insecticide on the board to kill the termites. Hunter noticed that about 95% of the termites died, but 5% survived. What is the most likely explanation for this? A. Quarter exam. ATH grade life science. The living termites were a different species than the dead termites. B. The living termites knew that Hunter was going to spray the insecticide, so they camouflaged themselves. C. The living termites had insecticide-resistant genes that the dead termites did not have. D. The living termites were males and the dead termites were females. 11. The gene for eyes in Rheopops is represented by the letter E. Homozygous dominant EE and heterozygous EE result in a curly tail. Homozygous recessive EE results in a straight tail. What percentage of the offspring in a cross between the parents with EE and EE genotypes will have a straight tail? A. 0 and B. 25%. C. 50%. D. 75%. 12. Which statement describes the work of Gregor Mendel? He developed basic principles of heredity, such as the principle of segregation and the principle of independent assortment. B. He explained that organisms can select which traits they pass to their offspring. C. He developed the microscope for the study of genes in pea plants. D. He used his knowledge of gene mutations to explain the appearance of new traits in organisms. 13. 14. A female rabbit had 5 offspring in one litter. 2 of the 5 baby rabbits were able to survive into adulthood. Why are some animals more likely to survive adulthood than other animals? They are unable to have more offspring than other animals. B. They are able to avoid adaptation better. C. They are able to sense and respond to their environment better. D. They are able to evolve faster than the other animals. 15. Some redwood trees reproduce both sexually and asexually. Once a tree reaches maturity, it can reproduce with another tree through pollination and fertilization. The tree then disperses thousands of seeds so that some of them might take root. However, a tree can also reproduce asexually. If it falls down, several smaller trees can sprout from its trunk without the need of fertilization. Why is it advantageous for a redwood to reproduce sexually when it could reproduce asexually instead? It decreases the time needed to reproduce. B. It increases the genetic diversity of the tree's offspring. C. It reduces the need to find a mate. It increases the energy needed to reproduce. The offspring of a sexually reproducing organism receives A. An exact copy of each parent's genetic material. Genetic material that is not related to either parent. half of its genetic material from each parent. An exact copy of one parent's genetic material. (19) Prior to herbicide applications, a student notes that there are two related species of weeds A and B that occur in similar numbers in field of crops. Species A reproduces sexually and species B reproduces asexually. After exposing both weed populations to several applications of herbicide, the student observes that the population of species B has become significantly smaller than the population of species A. Why did species A most likely have a survival advantage over species B? A. There was greater genetic variability in species A than there was in species B. B. The percentage of herbicide-resistant weeds decreased in species A but not in species B. C. Asexual reproduction allows the weeds to produce more offspring in a shorter period of time. D. Sexually reproducing weeds are better able to utilize nutrients from the herbicides than sexually reproducing weeds. 20. Two pea plants that are heterozygous for seed color NN. The dominant trait then results in yellow seeds. The recessive trait then results in green seeds. Create a Punnett square for this trait. Identify what percent of the offspring will have green seeds. 2 points. 21. A species of bird ate many types of seeds, each type coming from a different species of tree. The bird's beaks varied in size, with some individuals having slightly smaller beaks and others having slightly larger beaks. http:// A few years went by without much rain, and the only species of tree that survived had large seeds. Many generations later, almost all the birds had slightly larger beaks. Explain 2 reasons why this change in the beak happened. Respond in the space provided in your answer document. 2 points. 22. The illustration shows a strawberry plant that reproduces asexually. The small plant is the offspring of the larger plant. Describe one advantage and one disadvantage of asexual reproduction. Then describe one advantage and one disadvantage of a plant that reproduces sexually. 4 points.